This is a newly released, handwritten note made by Virginia Giuffre, the vocal and visible accuser of Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew, and Ghislaine Maxwell, was found dead at her home in Australia over the weekend. Some, including her own father, have reportedly questioned how Virginia died. And now we're diving into her own words and what they mean about her life and what she was going through when she passed away. We're on the case presented by Law & Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We just got some new information in about Virginia Giuffre, now days after she was found dead at her home in Australia. Her sister made this Facebook post that includes a picture of a journal entry that Virginia made, and we'll dive into why it's important in just a moment. This post comes as so many people are coming to grips with the reality that Giuffre has passed away, weeks after it came to light that she was in the middle of a custody dispute with her now estranged husband and was involved in a mysterious bus accident that put her in the hospital. On April 25th, Giuffre was found dead at her home outside Perth, Australia. Giuffre was American, but she moved to Australia in 2020 with her husband. The couple had 3 children, all teenagers. Giuffre and her husband had been in the middle of a custody dispute at the time of her death. There are some people who are close to Virginia Giuffre who have raised questions about how she died. For example, her dad told TMZ that he wants a deeper investigation by Australian authorities. He points to social media posts like this one from 2019, where his daughter writes, quote, "I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me to protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted." Giuffre's lawyer also spoke to UK media outlet The Sun and said, quote, "When I got the call, I was like, are you joking? Because there was no sign that that was something she was considering." Giuffre is one of, if not the most well-known accuser of Jeffrey Epstein. She claims that Epstein trafficked her when she was a minor. She also accused Prince Andrew of Britain's royal family of having sex with her when she was underage at 17 years old. This is the now infamous picture that was included in her lawsuit against the prince. It shows Giuffre and Prince Andrew and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell smiling at the camera in the background. Prince Andrew and Giuffre settled out of court in 2022 after she sued Andrew the year prior. It has never been made public how much money Andrew gave Giuffre to settle those claims, but we'll talk about the circumstance that could finally bring that number to light in just a moment. Prince Andrew has denied sleeping with Giuffre. In fact, he's denied ever meeting her. In a now infamous 2019 interview with the BBC, he said this about Virginia Giuffre when she accused him of having sex with her in 2001 in London.
"I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever."
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
Giuffre had claimed that the prince bought her drinks and they dined together and they danced together at a posh, members-only nightclub in London. Prince Andrew said he never spent time with Giuffre, and he claimed that on the date that she claimed that they were together, he was actually with his kids, and he went on to say that he didn't know where the bar was at that nightclub because he doesn't drink. And in what was an infamous moment as part of this infamous interview, Andrew disputed Giuffre's description of him profusely sweating. He said this to the BBC in that 2019 sit-down interview.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Giuffre claimed that she met the prince through Ghislaine Maxwell. The former socialite is now a convicted sex offender. She is living a much different life these days. Here's her mugshot from 2022 at the Metro Detention Center in New York. She is currently serving 20 years in prison on 5 sex trafficking charges related to the now dead financier, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, of course, died in his jail cell in 2019 after he was arrested on federal federal sex trafficking charges. The medical examiner said he hung himself. But of course, there have been questions surrounding Epstein's death and whether that actually happened. But Epstein's death isn't the only one that has raised questions and brought even more attention to this story. Giuffre now joins a tragic list of people associated with the late financier. According to Fox News, Virginia Giuffre is the third accuser of Jeffrey Epstein to die. But in life, Virginia Giuffre was not afraid to speak her mind, to first accuse people powerful and the people connected to the powerful like Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. Giuffre told CBS News this in 2020 about Maxwell.
She is a monster. She's worse than Epstein. She did things even worse than Epstein did.
In the wake of Giuffre's allegations and the out-of-court settlement, Prince Andrew resigned from public roles with the royal family in 2020. His mom, Queen Elizabeth, stripped Andrew of his royal and military titles in 2022 before she died later that year. Virginia Giuffre has been hailed by her supporters as a fighter for people who have survived sexual violence. Giuffre's sister-in-law, Amanda Roberts, posted this journal entry she says Giuffre made on Facebook. You can see it is handwritten. First, I'll start with what Amanda said. Quote, "While spending time with family and celebrating our sister, we were going through journal entries that Virginia had written over the years and stumbled upon this quote and thought it was a beautiful moment to share with you all. Survivors should know that she's with you and her voice will not be silenced. I know that it's so important, and her wish is that we continue to fight." And in Virginia's handwritten note, she says, quote, "Mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers need to show the battle lines are drawn and stand together to fight for the future of victims. Is protesting the answer? I don't know, but we've got to start somewhere." Roberts told People that over the last months of Giuffre's life, she was full of pain, saying, quote, "Over the last couple of months, I had some very, very, very deep conversations with her and was trying to encourage her." Much of the pain that Giuffre dealt with in the final months of her life appear to be related to some of the issues she was having with her now estranged husband, Robert Giuffre. We started to get more of a glimpse into the challenges that Virginia Giuffre was having living in Australia on March 30th of this year when she posted this image with the caption saying she had just 4 days to live. Now, we had to blur some of the images in this picture due to YouTube policies, but in that photo you can see the bruising that is all over her face and her chest, and she's sitting in what appears to be a hospital bed. The caption is 174 words, and it brought her story back to the headlines. It read, quote, "This year has been the worst start to a new year, but I won't bore anyone with the details, but I think it's important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers as we were slowing for a turn, that no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. I've gone into kidney renal failure. They've given me 4 days to live, transferring me to a specialist hospital in urology. I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes. Bleep in one hand and wish in the other. I guarantee it's still going to be bleep at the end of the day. Thank you all for being wonderful people of the world and for being a great part of my life. God bless you all, XX Virginia." When Virginia Giuffre made that post, it quickly went viral. She had said she had just days to live. So many people were questioning how this could happen, how all of it could be so sudden. Her spokesperson released a statement to People shortly after offering some clarification. That statement said, quote, "Virginia thanks everyone for the outpouring of love and support. She is overwhelmed with gratitude. Today she remains in serious condition while receiving medical care. On March 24th, in rural Western Australia, a school bus hit the car in which she was riding. The police were called, but said that there was no one available to come to the scene. They asked if anyone was injured and suggested that if they were, they should make their way to the hospital." Giuffre's statement then goes on to say that she actually didn't mean to post this caption saying that she had 4 days to live publicly. Instead, it was meant for a private Facebook group. Australian police have told media outlets that no one was reported injured in that crash, and the car involved sustained roughly $2,000 in damage, and the bus driver had reported the incident the next day. In the wake of that story about the bus crash, a lot came to light related to Virginia Giuffre's custody battle and her arrangements with her estranged husband, Robert Giuffre. According to People, Robert hit Virginia with a restraining order in February that prevented her from seeing their 3 children. Robert also accused Virginia of violating that order. Virginia accused Robert of physical abuse. Sky News in the United Kingdom says the couple separated in 2023. Robert's attorney had no comment for People. As for the man that Virginia Giuffre accused of sexual misconduct, Prince Andrew, he has yet to comment on her death. According to GB News, Giuffre's death, though, continues to have an impact on the reputation of the royal family. Royal commentator Charlotte Griffiths says that Andrew is seen as a, quote, unsolvable problem, and says that Prince William, next in line to be king after his father Charles, won't be seen anywhere near his uncle. GB News also writes, in the wake of Giuffre's death, there was an emergency meeting between King Charles and Prince William. As we said, it's unclear how much money Prince Andrew paid Giuffre to settle out of court in October 2022. The British media outlet The Sun writes that there could be a battle in court between Virginia's estranged husband Robert and her family in the United States over who would get the potentially millions of dollars left of the settlement from Prince Andrew. Not only could that create a court case that could go on for some time, but it also could be a proceeding that would allow us to finally learn how much money Prince Andrew actually paid Virginia Giuffre so his case wouldn't be heard in court. It's important to note that when talking about money and where it would go in the wake of someone's death, Virginia and Robert were estranged. They weren't divorced. As we've been saying, it took a lot of courage for Virginia Giuffre to come forward and accuse the people that she did, members of the world's most powerful elite. And there is one example that we have been following of why it can be so difficult for victims of sexual abuse to come forward. And it is the words on social media from one of Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriends. Her name is Victoria Hervey. She's a model and socialite. And when you look at her Instagram, you can see she has a playlist of story posts attacking Giuffre since that bus crash in March. One of them reads, "The pain caused by her lies, destroying lives and tearing families apart, all for money, is no small thing. She has a lot to answer for. I call this divine judgment by God. People often say karma has a way of catching up," and quote, "As Ghislaine Maxwell put it, Virginia is a fantasist." That post clearly showing that she supports Maxwell, now a convicted sex offender serving 20 years in U.S. prison. Here's that picture once again showing Maxwell in the background of the infamous photo of Giuffre and Prince Andrew. But even after Giuffre died, Hervey continues to post like she did here with this headline from an Australian media outlet that just writes, "Karma." Giuffre's family did release an official statement after her death saying that Virginia took her own life. But it's still unclear, and perhaps it will always be unclear, whether her death was an intentional act. In the wake of Giuffre's death, I spoke with civil trial attorney David Ring. He spent years not just following this case and everything associated with Jeffrey Epstein, as so many of us have, but by defending people who are victims of sexual assault. And I asked him about the importance that Giuffre played in helping others who have survived sexual trauma, and why the story surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, years after his death, continues to attract so much attention. She wasn't just a voice. I mean, she was a key piece of evidence in some of the cases that were brought forward. For people who may not, you obviously remember the Jeffrey Epstein case, how he died. Ghislaine Maxwell is now in prison. From an evidence standpoint, in the cases against them and the case that was pending against Jeffrey Epstein, how important was her testimony, beyond just being that public face that people saw, but within the courtroom?
Her testimony was monumental. It was critical to the case. I mean, there was only a few victims that were able to testify and come forward and tell their stories about being sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, and in the second case by Ghislaine Maxwell. So Virginia's testimony was crucial to both of those investigations and cases. And obviously was the centerpiece of the allegations made against Prince Andrew. And so she was incredibly important from an evidentiary standpoint to those investigations and those cases.
We were looking at some of the posts today from someone who is Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriend, Victoria Hervey. She's a British socialite. I know we talked about some of the posts that she had last time that we spoke about this, just attacking Virginia Giuffre's story, seemed to point and speak glowingly of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison on sex trafficking charges, a conviction of that. How does that public attack from someone who is a socialite, how does that impact a victim? And it's a unique case for Virginia Giuffre, but I'm sure in your line of work, you've seen cases where you do have these people who accuse someone's story in saying that it didn't happen or that they're lying against someone who's more powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, it happens every case because you're going to have everyone who supports the perpetrator calling the victim a liar and a fraud. And so when Virginia came forward and brought her accusations against Prince Andrew, and everyone knew Virginia's identity, you can imagine what she must have seen on social media and on the internet from his supporters that really, went after her and accused her of all sorts of nasty things, of being a liar and making things up and all of that. And you can imagine the toll that would take on a person to see that kind of just nasty verbal abuse day in and day out. And as you brought up, Chris, it hasn't ended. Even now, some ex-girlfriend of Prince Andrew has for some bizarre reason made it important to completely still talk trash about Virginia and saying these incredibly nasty, outrageous things about her, even after her death, saying, things like, karma and things like that on her social media posts. Absolutely bizarre, but very, very sad. And you can see the toll that takes on a victim. It's unfair, and that makes them all the more courageous for coming forward and persevering through things like that.
I know that Virginia had a somewhat complicated family dynamic. Her family released a statement initially saying that she had taken her own life. Then her father speaks to TMZ and says, wait a second, there could be some questions. We talked about the lawyer there. She was reportedly in the middle of a divorce. She had been separated from her husband in Australia, but there was she was in the process of officially being divorced. You have this undisclosed amount of money that Prince Andrew paid Virginia Giuffre when they settled out of court in 2022. It seems complicated with the parties that could make a claim for that. What could happen to that money if there was some sort of court dispute that took place?
Well, so here's the thing. Again, a lot of unanswered questions, but did Virginia have a will? We don't know that yet. But if she did, and it was a valid, legitimate will, okay, that's going to control her assets and where the inheritance goes to. Although even that could be challenged by other people who, family members who maybe weren't part of the will or given anything in the will, and they could come forward and say, oh, the will's fraudulent, or it was, it's not a legitimate will, things like that. If there's no will, then, my understanding of Australia law, similar to a lot of states here in America, is that because she wasn't formally divorced yet, even though she is separated from her husband, they were not divorced, he's first in line to receive her assets. And so, again, that could be something that, because that probably has to wind through the courts, that's something that we could find out a whole lot more about this settlement from Prince Andrew, because the public does not yet know the exact sum that Prince Andrew paid. And so, there's a lot of speculation out there that it was in the 8 figures and things like that, but no one has ever actually announced it and known for sure. And so if this dispute with Virginia's inheritance goes into the courts, we may very well find out what amount Prince Andrew paid to her in a settlement.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, and we'll see how that plays out, and then how that, of course, Prince Andrew no longer officially doing royal duties, but what would that amount add to his legacy that's already tarnished in the United Kingdom. Lastly, David, whenever we talk about Jeffrey Epstein, there's an incredible interest that people have, even years later in this case, questions about how he died, and now, even through statements from a lawyer, kind of adds to that fire of speculation, of conspiracy that people seem to have in this case. You followed this case for a long time. What is it about Jeffrey Epstein and everyone who is associated with him that creates that interest and almost the level of distrust people have with whatever officially is said by law enforcement about how he died, perhaps how Virginia died, if there's no more of an investigation into it? What is it about this story that just seems to just churn conspiracy theories?
Yeah, well, look, Epstein was obviously an incredibly powerful person who had access to the most powerful people in this country, including presidents. And so, all the financial wealthy people that he knew and hung around with and was associated with, and his own wealth. And so, the controversy around Epstein's suicide will go on for a long time, because there's a lot of questions about, whether he killed himself in jail or whether he was killed by someone else to silence him. That's going to be going on for a long time. We'll probably never have an answer to that. And it's sad. You can see the trail of tragedy that he's left behind. And this is another example of it with Virginia Giuffre and all the turmoil in her life. And, I think by all accounts, it seems as if she's either accidentally or maybe intentionally took her life. I don't think anyone's saying there's other people involved, but it's still a tragedy. And it shows you that, these victims of abuse, even as they get older in life, they still experience the trauma. They still have a lot of issues that flow from it. And just because they receive some settlement, some monetary settlement, that does not cure all of their issues that they have in life by any means.
No, incredibly well put, incredibly sad development in the story involving Virginia Giuffre, civil trial attorney David Ring. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
For On the Case, presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.